Hello to everyone today. This is South Alabama Cooking, back with another wonderful recipe. And today I'm going to be making homemade chicken and dumplings. Now, chicken and dumplings is just a classic comfort food. So I'm going to show you how I make mine. Okay, let's look over here at the stove. There's my pot, and I have some chicken, some raw chicken in there. We're going to let that chicken cook until it's tender. I'm going to add a little salt. All right, that's great. Now, the chicken that I have in there is, I have one chicken breast, I've got 2 chicken thighs, and the bones are in the chicken breast. It's a chicken breast with bones in it. And all of the pieces of chicken have the skin on them. And I'm cooking all of that together just like that because the bones and the skin will make a richer and more delicious broth for these chicken and dumplings. So that's the reason I'm doing that. Okay, we're going to let this cook, and then we'll just go to the next step, showing you step by step how to make this classic recipe.
With our partners in Allen to engage and coordinate on a range of issues, including the future of the Iran nuclear deal.
The Biden administration has criticized Iran for recent steps to violate that agreement after the U.S. withdrew.
All right, our chicken is tender. It's done. Let's turn around here and look. I'm going to dip it up out of the pot and put it on this plate here and let it cool some. Now I'm just going to set this just right over here where it can cool. And I'm going to kind of break this chicken breast apart so that it can go ahead and be cooling on the inside as well. All right, we're going to leave that right there and let it cool. Now let's go over to the counter over here, and we're going to start working on the dumplings. Okay, I've got a little bowl here that I'm going to mix them up in. Let me show you something. Okay, here's my old Southern Living cookbook. This is the one that I learned how to cook out of when I first started learning how to cook. And I've got my recipe here, chicken and rolled dumplings. That's the recipe I'm going to go by. All right, first of all, I'm going to need 1 cup of all-purpose flour. 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Now, I am just making a half recipe because there's only me and Carla here that's going to eat these chicken and dumplings, and so I don't want to make a huge pot and us have to eat them for days. So I'm making a half recipe. It calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to use 1. I'm cutting everything in half, all of the ingredients. So I've got my 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm trying to get this where you can see what I'm doing. I put it in my bowl. There we go. Then I need a teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, here's my baking powder. We're going to need 1 teaspoon. They're full recipe calls for 2. I'm doing a half recipe, so 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I'll need, instead of 1 teaspoon of salt, I'm going to need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I forgot to bring my salt over here, so let me go get it. All right, and I've got a 1/4 teaspoon, so I'm going to have to fill this up twice to equal 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, there's 1. And 2. All right. Okay, let me get me a fork and a spoon so that I can stir this stuff up. Okay, the next thing I need is my shortening, and it calls for 1/3 cup of shortening, so I've got a 1/3 cup here, and I just filled it half full. Okay, let me get this out of here. Scrape this off the spoon and get it down in here with the other ingredients. All right, now I need to cut this shortening into the flour. I've got a fork, and I'm going to cut the shortening into the flour. This is kind of like, this part is kind of like making biscuits. You have to cut the shortening into your flour. And I know a lot of people just use their hand and they squish it like that. And I cannot stand it. I can't stand for all of that stuff to be stuck to my fingers and to my hands. And so I use a fork and break it up and mix it up in with the flour. That works best for me. Now this kitchen that I'm doing this in, this is the kitchen I learned to cook in. I grew up in this house, and I inherited this house when my parents passed away. And so when I began to learn to cook, well, this is the house I learned to cook in. This is the bar I learned to cook on, you know. This is the original bar that I rolled my very first dumplings out on, this bar right here in this kitchen. And so here I am all these years later, rolling out more dumplings right here on this very bar that I learned to, that I rolled my first dumplings out on. All right, so I've about got that. Now, the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of milk. So we're going to cut that in half. We need 1/4 cup of milk. So I've got my 1/4 cup measurer. Let's put 1/4 cup of milk in here, and we'll stir that up. And this should begin to form a stiff dough for us. And we'll be able to roll it out here on the bar in just a little bit. Now while I'm getting my dumplings prepared, I've still got the water over in my pot. It's still boiling because I'm going to need the water boiling when I begin to drop the dumplings in over there. And I probably need to check and make sure that I actually have enough water in that pot, or do I need to add some? So let's walk over here and take a look. See how much water we've got in this pot. Okay, we don't have a whole lot of water in there, so we need to add some. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to add a can I'm going to add a can of chicken broth, not just water, but some chicken broth. That will be added flavor, added richness to this recipe. So I'll go ahead and add this can of chicken broth in. Oh, this is my little, this was my granny's little can opener that always sat on the vent hood at my granny's house. Now I've got it. It's got a little magnet that sticks like that. Now I've got it, and I use it. This was my Granny Cochran's. Okay, and see, this is how you use it. Some people don't know how to use this. You just get that pointed end, stick it in there just like that, and it will cut a hole in there. Okay, let's pour this in here. And that will give it a little more liquid. We're going to need some liquid to drop the dumplings in, and those dumplings will begin to cook, and they will actually soak up a lot of this liquid that's in the pot. Let me go ahead and turn my burner up to about medium-high. We want that to be boiling very nicely when we get ready to drop these dumplings in here. Okay, here we are. We're back over here. Now, it looks like I'm going to have to add just a tad more water to this because this is not forming a dough like I want it to yet. So let me add just a little more. I may have said water, I mean milk. Let me add a little more milk. See if this flour will come together and make me a dough here. Okay, let me add a little more milk. Stir this up, see what happens. All right, I think I need just a tad more. We're about to get there. Okay, let's see if that'll do it. Sometimes you have to work with your ingredients and adjust them some. All right, that might have it. Now, I'm going to roll these dumplings out on the bar, and I've already cleaned my bar, gotten it nice and clean. So I'm just going to roll them just out on the bar. Now, you want to make sure your bar is good and clean, or your surface, whatever you roll them on. And let's see, I need to put a little flour out on this bar. All right. Let's see if this dough will come together. Oh yeah, it's coming together. Look, there we go. Got my dough together. That's good. A little bit more here in the bowl. Let me get it out. Right. Now, we just kind of knead this just a little bit. Make sure it's all sticking together good here. Put a little flour on it to keep it from sticking to my hands. All right, this is good. This is doing good. Wind's blowing outside and blowing some stuff around. Y'all might can hear that. I don't know. All right. Let's start getting this rolled out. Now here's my rolling pin. Start working on this. Get a bigger space here to work with. Let's get this stuff back. Now I like thin dumplings, so I'm going to roll roll them pretty thin, and I may actually roll some thick ones because Carla likes thick dumplings. And since she's going to be eating these, I may just have some thick for her. Can you see what I'm doing? Let's see here. This around a little more. All right, let me see how thin or thick these are. Okay, I've got some thick ones right here. I'm going to go ahead and cut some thick ones for Carla. Okay, here's me a sharp knife, and I'm just going to slice these for her. And she will enjoy that. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. All right. Let me cut these up. That'll make her happy. And we'll drop these thick ones into the broth first because they're going to take longer to cook. All right, so here's Carla's thick dumplings. We'll just throw them over to the side here. Y'all see that? About that thick, like that. About 1/4 of an inch thick. All right, let's pull the dough over some. Get some flour back up under it so that it doesn't stick to the counter. Now, I'm going to roll this out to make thinner dumplings for me because I like thin dumplings. All right, good. That's good thin dumplings there. All right. Let me slice these up now. These will be mine. All right, here's my thin dumplings. Now, water is, okay, good. The broth is boiling over there. Let's go take a look at it. I'm still not sure that this is enough water, enough broth. I think I'm going to just add a little water to it. Okay, and we're going to need to let that come back to a boil. So I'm going to turn my burner on high where it'll hurry up and heat up. And in the meantime, I will get some of this chicken picked off here and ready to go in with the dumplings. Give me a plate. And I want some of this chicken here. Put it over here on this plate. Kind of break it up into smaller pieces. and getting like the fat off of it, getting skin off of it. Some people probably like to eat the fat and like to eat the skin, but I don't. So, just going to pick all of that off. I cooked a chicken breast and 2 thighs. I like the white meat best, but the dark meat is more juicy and it's a little more tender. So I wanted to add some dark meat in for the flavor. All right, I see my water's beginning to boil again. That's good. We're fixing to be ready to start dropping them dumplings into this broth over here. All right, I've got a good pile of chicken there. I'm going to wash my hands off real quick. Okay, look at here. See, our water's boiling good. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit though, so that it's not boiling quite so rapidly. Now, let's come over here and look at these dumplings again. I don't think you can see the thick ones. Here they are right here. Okay, I'm going to just start getting these, gathering them up in my hand and get ready to go throw these over in the pot. You can't quite see what I'm doing here. Let me see if I can fix this. There we go. These are the thick ones. We'll let them go in the pot first, like I said, because it will take longer for these to cook. Okay, let's head back over to the stove. See if I can set this up where you can see what's happening. All right, we want to drop these in one at a time. We don't want to just throw them all in together because they'll stick together and just make a big, terrible glob. So you want to drop them in one at a time and let each dumpling get coated with this liquid, and that will help them not to stick together. Also, having your water boiling, that will help the dumplings to not stick together. Okay, I'm going to turn my fire back up to high because as I drop the dumplings in, it's cooling down my liquid and the boiling is slowing down. So I don't want my boiling to slow down. All right, that's got my thick dumplings in there. Let me get me a spoon out. Kind of stir them up, make sure that they're not sticking to each other, and if they are, break them apart. If you see any that's sticking, break them apart. Okay, that looks good. See how they're starting to fluff up now? See, they're fluffing up some. Let me see if I can get it closer here. They're starting to fluff up some and thicken up a little bit. That's because of the baking powder and the salt that I mixed in with the flour. That's going to make these dumplings fluff up and rise a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go back over and get the thin dumplings now, right over there. Take me just a minute to get them all up in my hand and come back over there to the pot. All right, I got them all. Let's turn back around here to my pot. We'll drop these in. Get my camera set up. Y'all can see more what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's stir it up, see how that looks. Okay, that's great. Those dumplings are doing good. Now let's drop the thin dumplings in. Trying to make sure that each one of them gets coated with liquid. Maybe stir them just a little bit. See if there's any of them sticking. If so, break them apart. Okay. Almost got them all in there. All right, there we go. Let's stir them up again. I'm going to turn the burner down just a little bit because these dumplings, it's going to take a little while for them to actually cook and get done. So I'm going to turn the burner down. We're going to give them a little time to cook. And here's one dumpling that's kind of folded over. I'm trying to straighten it out. Okay, I think I see some dumplings that are kind of stuck together. Let me take a look at that. Break them up. All right, we're going to let these cook for a little bit. We're just going to let them simmer. We'll put the lid back on top to hold the heat in. Okay, the dumplings are done, and we have a nice thick broth now here with the dumplings. Let's see if I can let you see that thick broth here. You see that? It's got a nice thick broth with it. Okay, so The next thing we want to do is we want to add some chicken. We'll get this chicken added to it. We'll stir it up. And this dish will be ready to eat. So I'm just going to look here and just add as much chicken as I want. However much you want in your chicken and dumplings, just add that to it. Now Carla mainly likes to eat the dumplings, so she'll eat some of the chicken, but she mainly likes the dumplings. Now I like it mixed together. I like the chicken and dumplings all together. Okay, that might be enough chicken there. There we go. That's got it. So here's our chicken and dumplings. Let me get a spoonful of it up here for you to see. That is our chicken and dumplings ready to go. Right there. All right. I'm just waiting on Carla to get home from work, and we're going to eat this for supper with some vegetables, and this is going to really be an enjoyable meal. I hope you folks have something good for supper to eat. Thank y'all for coming into my kitchen and visiting with me a little bit and watching me demonstrate this recipe. And I'll be back real soon with another great recipe.